Hey everybody, it's the interview queen Alicia Atout here, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to my interview with Chris Dickinson. Hello,
Hello, how's everybody doing?
how are you? How have you been? It's been a minute.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm just really busy with pro wrestling. Obviously, that's what I do, and it's great. Um, I kind of made the most of every opportunity I was gifted this last year, and I ended up in a pretty decent position, I think. So I'm happy about that. That I'm able to, continue wrestling pretty regularly, and I was wrestling pretty regularly even when it was still pretty bad. So
Right. Well,
lucky.
we're definitely going to get into some of those opportunities, but I wanted to ask, with the way the world is now, things can get pretty boring, especially keeping yourself kind of busy and sane. So outside of the work and the wrestling, what are some of the things you've been doing just to occupy your time?
Well, I train a lot. Obviously, I work out usually like twice a day. I'll work out like once in the morning when I wake up. Like we were talking about music. I usually I play drums. I play bass. So in the morning, like when I wake up, I'll have my coffee like before I go exercise, and I'll play bass usually for like an hour before I go out and exercise. I feel like playing an instrument, it's really good for your mind and your body. Kind of like gets the juices flowing, makes your brain start working.
Right.
Gets all your functions kind of lighting up, and kind of helps you wake up. Especially when I'm like having my coffee, it's good to just mess around.
No, I saw you kind of noodling on bass maybe a week back, and you posted that drumming video a couple nights ago. So I was like, I just got to hit him up because this whole website's about music and wrestling, so it's kind of like the perfect candidate for this. So we'll
Yeah, yeah.
definitely talk more music in a sec. But I just wanted to say how it has been so awesome just seeing you kicking ass on New Japan Pro Wrestling, recently Ring of Honor. Does it feel a little bit surreal or just badass knowing you're out there, not only working for one super cool company, but a few notable ones out there?
It's awesome. It's definitely awesome. It's what I always felt like I should be doing. So I wouldn't say it's surreal. I'm like exactly where I want to be and doing exactly what I want to do. That part of it is kind of surreal, but it took a long time. A lot of pay, and it's when you want to do things your way and you want to like stick to your guns and really not compromise. Things take a little more time sometimes, but when you're doing what you want to do and things are working out, it's like the victory is that much sweeter. When you're just complete. It's all completely you.
Right. And just speaking to that path, the other day you posted this photo of a very young Chris Dickinson and used to be in a dojo when you were about 6 or 7. The photo looked like it was from around then. So what kind of ran through your mind, just reflecting on everything you know you're doing now and then just seeing that picture, which is from a long time ago?
Yeah, it's so when I see things like that, it's just it's so natural to to see where everything went and the choices I made and the things that influenced me with pro wrestling, because I always loved pro wrestling even then when I was a little kid, and then how I kind of just started discovering more and more pro wrestling, and it all just kind of went hand in hand with what like my background in life was, which was kind of just given to me. It's like I didn't choose when I was 5 years old to go to a karate. You know what I mean? It
Right.
was like I did, I wanted to, but it's my influences and the direction my life went in. It's so right. You know what I mean? It's so natural, and I kind of just kept it in all the when I found like Japanese wrestling, and I found more martial arts, I guess, based wrestling and influence wrestling. That's where I kind of always knew I wanted to go with pro wrestling. So to know that I'm kind of at a point now where it took a long time to become the pro wrestler I wanted to be, because for me it wasn't easy, like getting to this point,
Right.
or at least not like a point. What I mean is like becoming the pro wrestler I always wanted to be. It took a long time. It took a lot of training and training with different people and practice and just watching and studying and all that. And to know I've gotten to this point where like I really am in a groove where I'm where I want to be, and I'm constantly, you know,
Pushing
tending to
yourself.
wanting to keep that going and evolving and getting better at what I'm doing. It is surreal in a way when I do look back on things like that, and I'm like, wow, it's like I still basically am the same person as the 8-year old, 9-year old kid in the photograph. I'm just a more grown-up version, you know.
I mean, you said be someone the little you would look up to, and I feel like just reflecting back and hearing everything you're saying now, like they'd be looking up saying, "Yeah, good job, Big Chris."
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the definition of success, right? That's something that
Sure.
money can't buy, you know. So
No,
I'm pretty happy about that.
100%. Now I gotta say, I've watched some pretty crazy matches of yours, the bloody ones, the intense ones, and you were just super focused in the ring. So, what would you say is one of the more bloody matches, or just one where you walked away thinking, "Man, you're a crazy SOB."
Oh, there was the one where it really started kickstarting me, you know, breaking out more. Uh, was this match I had with Nick Gage at GCW. We used some barbed wire. There was barbed wire in the ring. I took a face plant face first into barbed wire, and I got this scar on my shoulder. This gross, like looks like a piece of steak or something on my shoulder. It's gross. It's terrible, but it happens. That was a pretty good one, where I look back on it and I was like, man, thank God, like I didn't rip myself up even worse,
Yeah.
so there's been a couple. I don't do stuff like that. I don't do stuff like that very often, but when I do, it's like, you're going to have things to I have other ones, from other matches. You're going to have little things that you're going to remember it by. And, at this scar in particular, I remember Masato Tanaka was at the show. And I think that was the first time I actually met him. And he became a friend of mine. I ended up wrestling him. And he's just a really amazing guy. And he's one of like my heroes. And he's like got all the crazy scars all over his body from like all the FMW death matches. And I was like, Tanaka-san, you think stitches? And he looked and he was like, oh, no stitches. And I was like, okay, he said no stitches. So I absolutely can't get stitches because he told me
No.
not to. But like looking back on it, I probably should have.
But hey, you got the cool story and bonding moment out of it, which is a little bit better than getting
Exactly.
stitches.
Yes.
Oh, outside of wrestling, as we mentioned, a huge passion of yours is the music, beating hell out of the drums, playing bass. So the other day, that clip, was that just from a jam session with some friends? Do you have another band now?
That was a jam session with some friends. That was that was all on the fly, just us messing around. And I just sometimes will prop up the camera next to the drum kit and just and hit record. And then if there's something I like from the recording, I'll keep it. And that was just us, just kind of like noodling around. And the two guys I'm playing with in that video are actually the one kid that you could see in the video.
Yeah.
Was he went to my karate dojo too, and we've known each other since we were like little kids, like 7 years old.
That's rad.
Yeah, he's a very old friend of mine, and we ended up playing in a band together. And the other kid that was playing too, we were in two bands together over the years. So I don't have enough time, unfortunately, to really dedicate to playing in a band or give myself to other musicians enough where it's like, okay, so,
Right.
but I'll get together with my friends and we'll jam out, we'll play, whenever we can.
You had mentioned being in a couple bands there. I know you were in a few as a teenager. So was music ever something that you wanted to pursue professionally, or was it always just wrestling? Oh,
No,
okay.
I when I was in high school, I started wrestling really young. I started going to training really young and doing small local indie shows when I was only 16 years old, kind of just I'd wear like a mask on some shows and do like a gimmick like that, or do something, just getting my feet wet, like trying to figure it out. I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
But at one point I kind of was like, I'm going to take a break with this. Because I got into playing drums. I started really getting into playing drums. My grandfather was a jazz musician, and he taught music, and he gave like drum lessons, clarinet lessons, saxophone lessons, flute lessons. He was a really accomplished jazz musician back in the day, and then he started his own business after. He had he had a wedding band after he retired in like
That's
the
amazing.
70s. Yeah, it was like when there was no DJs, so he had a great business, just having this wedding band like back in the 70s. And he eventually started the music school, and then he started private lessons and all that. So I had him to kind of
Show you the
like
way.
I tried playing saxophone when I was like 10 or 11 years old. I tried like he tried to teach me, and it wasn't for me. I played guitar a little bit again. It wasn't for me. And then I picked up the drumsticks. And I was like, okay, he gave me this book. It was like a Buddy Rich rudiment book, like real basic. And I was like, I don't want to take lessons. I'll teach myself. And he was like, take this book. He gave me a drum pad and I got like my first pair of drumsticks. And I just started learning like all some of the basic rudiments and, just how to play single strokes and double strokes. And I would just play along to, play single strokes to, songs I liked and just try to learn rudiments and things like that. And eventually, after like a couple months, I got good enough where I could play like, this entire chapter of the book. So then he got me my first drum set basically. And then
That's awesome.
eventually after like a year, I got like a nicer drum set, that I paid. It was like a half of a Christmas gift, and I paid for half of it with my own money. Or like my dad took me to pick it up in Manhattan at Manny's Music, and like I sat in the back of the truck, and I was like, man, I feel just like it sounded just like the same story Dave Lombardo told when he got his first Tama drum set. He was the drummer of Slayer. As I was super into music, and I kind of was like, I want to go all in on music. And when I was 17, I joined a band that had like a small record deal, and I was, doing small tours and going, getting out there in the van. And I had just like graduated high school. I was totally focused all in on music and playing. And I wasn't really into wrestling for maybe about like almost like 2-3 years almost, like focused completely on playing music. And then I also focused on playing in a band and playing drums. I feel like I developed most of my chops actually when I hurt my knee and I stopped wrestling for like a year and a half in like 2011. And I just completely locked myself in the studio with my drum set, and I practiced sometimes like 4 or 5 hours a day. And that was when I was way more of an efficient, I guess you could say, death metal drummer, because I was focusing on playing like blast beats and double bass. I wanted to really play fast, and I played in a death metal band with my friends. We used to play covers of bands like
What were you guys called?
Crowbar Facelift.
That's such a death metal band name.
Crowbar Facelift. Yeah, we played like Morbid Angel covers, Deicide covers. We had a couple of originals, and we just played like really local shows, but they were like really, really good. We'd sell out these really small venues and have like parties basically with all our friends, and it was a good time, and then eventually the wrestling, it just never, the bug just never went away.
Yeah.
I got back into wrestling, and then here we are, so.
No, fair enough. And you had mentioned Slayer there. I saw a couple hours ago you were jamming to some Anthrax. So have you always kind of been more a metalhead? Like that's totally just your scene?
Well, yeah, when I was growing up, I have an older brother and sister. So my older brother and sister, they weren't really into the heavy metal, but they're from like the 80s, because I'm the youngest of my siblings. My brother, he's 13 years older than me, and my sister's 9 years older than me. So they were like 80s kids. So I grew up with like all the 80s pop music and all that stuff. And I grew up watching MTV and like VH1 and Headbangers Ball, like the tail end of all that stuff, and watching music videos on TV. And ECW really though was I would say was really the gateway to me finding the bands that I really ended up liking. Like the first bands I ended up liking, like Metallica or Pantera or Alice in Chains. And then I find bands like on MTV, like Anthrax, or the grunge stuff. I remember Nirvana, Stone Temple Pilots, Soundgarden, all that stuff was still real, but was super popular in the 90s. And I liked the heavy metal stuff a lot. I obviously you'd go to the music store in the mall, or your mom would go to the mall, and I'd walk away and veer off on my own. And there was 4 or 5 just music stores alone. So you go look at all the CDs. You're like, okay, so I like this band. Let me look at all these albums. Well, they have all these albums like Pantera, right? Of course, the first song I heard was Walk. Okay. Yeah. So what am I going to do? The next time I go to the mall, I'm going to go to Sam Goody. That was like a big music store chain. I'm going to look at Pantera and the CDs. And then I found, I'll buy the CD. I'll ask my mom to buy it for me, right? I saw Cowboys from Hell, and I thought that was like the coolest thing I've ever heard. I was like, Cowboys from Hell? Sure. What's Cowboys from Hell? I got that one instead. I'll never forget that. And, I just kind of manifests like that. And then the internet came out, and then it was like, that was it. So
that was the end.
I like heavy metal, thrash metal, hair metal, all that stuff. It was really like my that was where I found my musical identity. I remember my brother, he bought me Appetite for Destruction when I turned 11.
Classic.
He got me the CD, and I remember that was like, life changing. My first three bands, it was my first three favorite bands. I'll never forget. I had like the CDs propped up on my, like, my little dresser. It was a Metallica Black Album, Cowboys from Hell, Pantera, and Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses.
For me, it was just looking at the artwork and thinking, whoa, this is so different from everything and anything I've ever seen. They all have the same fonts, and it just looked like these badass covers. So for me, that's what drew me in originally. Then once you hear the music, of course, it's a whole other world.
Yeah, the music, the art, obviously, the visuals, the aesthetic of heavy metal, thrash metal, and all that stuff, and then eventually death, and you get into death metal. And I say this all the time. It's kind of a saying I have. I'm still listening to the same stuff I was listening to when I was literally single digit age kid. Sometimes, most of the time, like there's some stuff that never goes away, and that's because it's just that good. It's just that good. You know what I mean? So.
No, I was completely an emo kid growing up. So all of those same bands, the Taking Back Sundays, the Used, they're ones I still listen to this day, and it'll be that way when I'm 80. So
you gotta hold on to your favorites,
For sure. Well, the last thing I wanted to ask you about, we were kind of mentioning theme songs really briefly there. So if you could have any band write some entrance music for you, who would you just love to see do so? Like
a band, like an actual band.
Band, artist.
I have this guy. He made a song for me that I've been using in New Japan, Ring of Honor. He's awesome. There's a couple of guys like I love, man. Oh, I'd love for Marty Friedman to do a song for me. Okay. Like he was the guitarist in Megadeth. He's a solo artist. He's like a shred guy. There's this guy, Daniel Tidwell. He does like covers of video game songs. He's a sick shred guitar player. There's another guy named Myron. I want to like hit this guy up and ask him to make a theme for me eventually, because he's another sick guitar player. But these guys, obviously, they're more like, underground kind of, but they're sick. They're sick guitar players. I don't know if I had if one band could write me a song to come out to. I don't know, man. Like maybe just gonna throw one out there, like original lineup Van Halen. I don't know.
That'd be dope.
Yeah, it'd be pretty badass. I don't think it's gonna get any more badass than that.
No, I can see that working for you so well too. Like it's not like that'd be perfect, but no, that's awesome. Well, I really do want to say just thank you so much for coming on here, for shooting the breeze. It's been awesome getting to catch up with you. So congrats on everything, and thanks a bunch.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, to everybody watching, this has been Chris Dickinson. Be sure to check out aliciatout.com for more exclusive interviews and features, and we will see you all next time. Bye, guys.